Welcome to Issues That Matter. I'm Cynthia Pooler, and my guest today is Scott Ritter. And Scott and I are going to talk about Brittney Griner. So, as of this recording, she pleaded guilty this morning. Now, what was her charge? And who
Sure.
is she actually? Who is she? Let's inform everybody who she is.
Uh, Brittney Griner is a world famous uh, female basketball player. She's won, I believe, two Olympic gold medals for the United States. She
Wow.
plays professional basketball here in the United States, and in the off season, I believe she plays professional basketball for a Russian team in in the Russian league, where she's compensated quite handily for that because she's a great player, a big name, big draw. Basketball is a very popular sport in Russia, and so she was, I believe, uh, coming home from Russia at the time of her arrest. So she had completed. Playing basketball or training. Again, I don't know all the details of her life. She is very famous, though. I mean, there's no doubt about it. She's a superstar. She's in that league where her name, or BG, is well known, especially to those who follow basketball and women's professional basketball.
Hmm. So she was arrested for, was it? It wasn't actually marijuana, was it?
Well, again, I don't have access to the lab reports. What the Russians have called it is oil extractive hashish,
Okay.
which again I because I don't partake, I don't have specific knowledge of this, but I believe this was a vape cartridge, a
Okay.
cartridge that's used in a vape device, so that you smoke it and or you inhale it, and you can get high from this. According to Brittany's guilty plea, which she gave today in a Moscow court, um, she had inadvertently packed these. She didn't realize that she
Right.
had them on her, and that she, if anything, she's guilty of possession as opposed to trafficking. She's been charged with trafficking, which is a
Mm-hmm.
very serious charge in Russia. It carries a 10-year sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she's pled guilty to possession. Um, I believe now she is going to be given until July 14th to perfect a statement to the court on the exact circumstances of how this came to be, and then the court will pass judgment.
Do you think she was reckless in carrying that over to Russia?
If she did it on purpose, of course, that's reckless. Russia has very strict narcotic laws, as do we. I mean, you would be reckless carrying this stuff into the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just make this statement straight up. Any Russian caught carrying similar quantities of narcotics in the United States would have been arrested at the port of entry and charged with similar crimes here in the United States. Uh, these are laws that are taken very, very seriously. Some states have legalized the use of marijuana. And had she been a detained, had a Russian tourist been detained by a state official, perhaps there wouldn't be a problem. But if you're coming across the border, you're going to interface with federal officials, and federal laws uh,
Right.
come into play. And a Russian hockey player playing in the United States, who was found to be carrying this stuff, would have been arrested. Now, I who knows what would have happened at that point. One tends to believe that in the United States, you could, if you're a hockey player playing for a professional team, you could hire competent legal representation, and you could negotiate this down if politics didn't intervene. Um, but in Russia, it's much more difficult. They don't have high powered defense attorneys like we do here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The legal system there is actually much more straightforward than it is here. Here, If you got money, you can buy lawyers, and lawyers can plead things down. That's just a statement of fact. You don't see millionaire white boys going to jail for the same drug possession charges that urban city black boys go to jail for. That's just a straight up statement of fact. I can guarantee you there will be a different outcome at trial if you're defended by a public defender who has a huge caseload and not enough time, or you're defended by $1 million lawyer who has a law firm backing him or her up. So that's American justice. Russian justice, you get a lawyer, you get to go before the judge, but they're very straightforward. There's not the same sort of plea deal arrangement here in the United States. Here in the United States, prosecutors tend to overcharge in order to get somebody to plead guilty to prevent people from going to trial. In Russia, you go to trial. You go to trial. I wish it was that way in the United States, where if the state is going to charge you, they have to bring you to trial and they have to make the case. But here in the United States, you get the right lawyer, you don't have to go to trial. You get hit with a lesser charge. You pay a fine. Things go away. Favors are done. Unfortunately for Brittney Griner, that's not how the Russian system works.
So it's becoming an international issue because of the war in Ukraine, and Biden is saying that her arrest is being used as leverage in Ukraine. What do you think about that?
Leverage for what? I mean, that's just literally one of the dumbest statements American politician has ever made. I'll tell you what's going on with Brittney Griner. It's called Marina Butina. All Americans should go and Google that name, Marina Butina. She was a Russian girl arrested here in the United States, charged with failing to register as a foreign agent. She spent 9 months in pretrial detention in some of the most horrific conditions possible. Then she spent 5 months in federal prison, again, being abused by the federal system, punishing her. For what? The sin of being Russian. The sin of being Russian at a time when the Democrats were accusing the Republicans of conspiring with the Russians to steal an election. She was accused of trying to gain influence with the National Rifle Association. Again, I'm not a fan of the NRA, don't agree with their policies, but there is no doubt that the Obama Department of Justice was seeking to score political points by prosecuting Maria Butina to the maximum extent possible under the law to make political points. That is the very definition of people using a criminal charge for political purposes. What are the Russians gaining from this? What phone calls has Vladimir Putin made saying, hey, I got BG in prison. You need to do X for me or else. Or else what? He's before a judge. The judge will make the decision. I don't think Vladimir Putin's picked up one phone call, one phone and made a phone call to the judge or say anything. I can guarantee you that the Obama administration was deeply involved in the Marina Butina case because they were trying to score political points against the Republicans in a very divisive political environment here in the United States. There is no political divisiveness in Russia. Putin has an 83, 86% approval rating. The Russians are winning the war in Ukraine. You really think Putin's going to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'll release BG if you stop selling HIMARS, multiple launch rocket systems, to the Ukrainians? That ain't happening. What's happening here is that the president of the United States is desperate. This is a man whose policies have destroyed the economy of the world. The economy of the world. This is a man whose policies have humiliated NATO and the United States, not only in Ukraine, but in Afghanistan. So this is a man desperate to deflect attention away from his personal failures. This is a man who hasn't the courage to say, hey, suck it up, America. Yeah, you're paying higher prices at the pump because of my policies. I'm making this happen because I believe it's the right thing. No, it's Putin's taxes. The man's just a lying psychopath. And right now he's seeking to shift, responsibility. What Vladimir Putin's gaining what leverage from the Brittney Griner situation? None whatsoever. She's not a political prisoner. She's not going to be traded at the Bridge of Spies for some Russian espionage artist. What are we going to trade her for a Russian tourist? I mean, there's no trade going to take place. Brittney Griner committed a crime. It may have been an inadvertent crime. She'll have an opportunity to make that case before a judge in Moscow, and maybe that judge will find her guilty of a lesser offense. Maybe that judge will let her off with time served. Maybe that judge will give her a lesser sentence. We don't know because the case is still unfolding. But she pled guilty because she was guilty. This is not, as the State Department said, there's a specific term they use, but it's basically she was arrested without cause, that this was, no, I'm sorry, Mr. State Department official. The woman was carrying narcotics in her baggage. She says it was inadvertent. She says that she didn't mean to pack it. She says she wasn't using in Russia. They'll know. I mean, I'm sure they took samples. They can determine whether or not she had narcotics in her system. If she's telling the truth, that should mitigate in her favor before the court. But the notion that the Russians set this thing up to somehow score political points against the United States to create political leverage is the dumbest thing ever said. The woman was caught with narcotics in her possession going through a customs checkpoint. End of story.
But the mainstream media in this country makes it out to be, Putin is wrong, this, that, and the other thing. So I'm never going to play it to the hilt, whether it's for a gender reason or whatever. But the American media is going to make hay out of this, wouldn't you say?
But again, make hay for whom? I mean, so it's a self-licking ice cream cone. The media is pleasing itself. Wow, we can blow this up into a story. We can throw out wild accusations. We can do whatever we want. We'll make a documentary out of this. We'll have a Hallmark made-for-TV movie out of this. We'll interview her wife. We'll interview her teammates. We'll interview her when she comes home. The only people that care about this are the American public. I can guarantee you there's not a Russian that's watching the American news about Brittney Griner and losing any sleep. They're at war in Ukraine. That's what they care about. They don't care about NBA or WNBA stars caught with narcotics at a Russian checkpoint. That is not the headline news in Russia. That is not what Putin is losing sleep over. That's not what anybody in Russia cares about. Only here in the United States. This crisis has made in the USA stamped all over it. And if I were Brittney Griner's family, I would actually tell the US government to shut up. You're not doing anybody any good. If this woman is truly innocent of the charge of trafficking, if this is truly about an inadvertent mistake, the last thing you need to do is politicize this, because you know what? Russia doesn't give a damn about American politics at this point in time. There's absolutely no leverage the United States can bring to bear on Russia at this point in time. Russia doesn't care. I'll tell you why Russia doesn't care. Marina Butina. Look how we treated that young woman. Look how we abused that young woman. Look how we attacked that young woman. Look what we did to her in our prison system. And it's known in Russia. Every dirty detail is known. Because she's a member of parliament right now. She's a big deal. And you really think that Russia's going to have sympathy for a WNBA player who got caught doing something really bad? No, none whatsoever. This is literally the dumbest thing imaginable under the given circumstances. Americans should just shut up, let the Russian legal system work its course. The best thing would be for Brittany's wife to travel to Moscow, speak with Russian politicians quietly behind the scenes, humanize Brittany, make her a human being. Don't turn her into this political martyr, because she's not a political martyr. She's a basketball star, a big name who got caught doing something really, really stupid. Should she spend 10 years? I don't think so. I don't think she should spend any time in jail. I don't think what she did is a major crime. But I'm an American. I'm not a Russian. This is Russia we're talking about, Russian laws. And I can guarantee you, it's funny. They talked about her being in prison with two other English speakers in her jail cell who were incarcerated for similar drug charges. What are their names? We don't know. We don't know because we don't care. Because right now in Russian prison, there are dozens, if not hundreds of Americans who've been accused of violating Russian laws. They're in prison because they violated Russian laws, just like Russians would be in American prison for violating American laws. We only care about her because she's a basketball superstar. That's it. And we made this a crisis, not the Russians.
But the particular woman that you talked about a few minutes ago, her name was
Marina Butina.
I never heard her name on the mainstream media.
Oh my goodness, go back to 2019, 2018, 19, 2000. Biggest story out there. Marina Butina. She's the one who was accused of trading sex for, gaining access. Of course, the judge chastised the prosecution for slandering her. This is what the American prosecution did. We attacked her. We destroyed her. We turned her into a political puppet. She never got a fair trial. She never got a fair shake. She was coerced into making a guilty plea because they would not have convicted her at trial. But they put her in solitary confinement. They abused her. They abused this woman who did nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. Even if she was guilty of violating the failure to declare yourself as a foreign agent. Foreign agent doesn't mean spy. It just means that you're representing the Russian government and you failed to notify the U.S. government. And they put her in solitary confinement? No, we abused this poor woman. I'm not saying she was innocent. They didn't prove her guilt. They coerced a guilty plea by subjecting her to the most inhumane prison conditions imaginable. Brittney Griner, come on. She's in solitary. She's being handcuffed. She's being abused, sexually assaulted. I think not. Marina Butina was.
Wow. I gotta say, watching the TV, I just, exhibited my ignorance, but I never heard her name on like MSNBC or CNN.
She was everywhere. She was beautiful, a beautiful girl. She was the beautiful Russian spy who used her sexual charms to get into the NRA to try and arrange a meeting with Donald Trump, to arrange a secret back channel with the Trump administration. She was accused of everything. What was she guilty of? Being a gun enthusiast, trying to, work with the NRA. Did she cross any, boundaries? Maybe. Did she commit a crime? Maybe technically. Was she a risk to national security? Absolutely not. Did she deserve to be kept in solitary confinement, kept in federal custody for 9 months before? She didn't go to trial, They kept her for 9 months because she pled not guilty at first. They were preparing for a trial. The federal government knew they couldn't win a trial. They kept her for 9 months, abused her. When I say sexually assaulted, understand the kind of checks that inmates go through in prison. Now understand that you're a Russian girl, handcuffed, being stripped searched by Americans. And they ain't doing it because there's really a threat. They're doing it to abuse her, to intimidate her, to compel her to plead guilty, because that's what the American prison system's all about. The most corrupt institution in America is the American prison system. And we put her in there for 9 months of pretrial confinement and then 5 months sentence before she was allowed to go home.
And when she went home, did she talk about her?
She wrote a book.
Okay.
They made a movie. The Russians know all about this. That's why you're not going to get any sympathy from any Russians about Brittney Griner. Brittany Griner
Okay.
hasn't been sexually abused. Brittany Griner hasn't been put in solitary confinement. Brittany Griner hasn't been subjected to, some of the tricks of the trade that the American prison system puts prisoners through. Brittany Griner she's an inmate. Life ain't easy, I'll tell you that. But it's not the worst thing in the world. She gets to write letters. She gets to communicate. She has cellmates. She has human to human contact. She's eating right. Go to solitary confinement, eat some of the crap they tried to feed you there. No, there is no comparison between what happened to Marina Butina and what's happening to Brittany Griner right now. None whatsoever. Marina Butina was treated far worse, far inhumanely, and that's why the Russians will have no sympathy for Brittany Griner. They're not going to abuse this woman. They're not going to torture her. They're not going to sexually assault her. They're simply going to process her through the Russian legal system. And if she ends up getting a sentence, she'll get it. But, here's the deal. How long has Brittany Griner been in custody?
I think since February, right?
Right. So it's what, February, March, April, May, June, July. 6 months, we got the guilty plea. It took 9 months for Marina Butina, but it did, Brittany hasn't been subjected to solitary confinement.
Mm-hmm.
She's getting a much speedier processing than Marina Butina did. Far less politics. Again, she's headline news here in America. The Russians could care less.
Wow. So ultimately, what do you think the outcome will be with Brittany?
I hope that she and her legal team can put together a compelling statement of the inadvertency of this crime. And I'm hopeful that if they do that, the judge will, charge her with a lesser offense, possession as opposed to trafficking. And I'm hopeful that the judge will, find some humanity in the sentencing process. Maybe sentence her to time served, and then send her on her way, send her home. I'm hopeful of that. I will tell you this: the more the U.S. politicizes this case, the less likely that outcome will occur. The more the U.S. makes it appear that there's political value to her, the more political value she has. I don't see the Russians being that petty right now, but you never know. You never know. There might be a secret Russian prisoner here in the United States that we don't know anything about, who's detained in some, level 5 maximum security prison being abused on a daily basis that the Russians really want released. And maybe they'll cut a deal. I don't see the Russians doing that. I see the Russians viewing her as what they've charged her, not a political prisoner, but a common criminal. I mean, she's guilty, or she's pled guilty to possessing narcotics. That's a criminal charge. So that's how the Russians are treating her. There's nothing more, nothing less. We're the ones that are trying to make this a political case. It's not. And believe me, she doesn't want it to become a political case, because if she becomes a political case, then she's going to be held forever, because there will be reciprocity between whatever sentence she's serving and whatever sentence the Russian that they want to trade for her is. They're not going to release, a woman that's been in 6 months pretrial confinement for a Russian that's been in the hell that is American prison for years. So the Americans need to back off.
Okay, let's look at the big picture, and the big picture is the war with Ukraine. Um, what's her role in it? I mean,
She has no role in this. She has no role whatsoever.
understood. Okay, she was arrested, so therefore, the American press is trying to, portray her as like a political pawn and so forth. So overall, the overall picture is the war in Ukraine. How does she fit into all this?
Not at all. I can
Okay.
guarantee you that there's not a single Russian soldier on the front lines going, "Oh man, if only the BG case was taken care of, maybe we could end this war sooner." There's no Ukrainian saying, if they'd only released BG, we'd we'd resolve this issue on the battlefield. They don't care because she doesn't matter. Nobody cares about BG in Russia except the courts and the police who arrested her. They're the only ones who care. Putin doesn't care. The generals don't care. The soldiers don't care. The war in Ukraine certainly doesn't care. The only ones who make it an issue here in the United States is us here in the United States, because we need distraction from the fact that, hey, our policy isn't working. We're failing across the board. We're losing economically. We're losing militarily. We're losing politically. And so Brittney Griner is one of those stories that we throw out there that helps us make the Russians into bad guys. Oh, those evil Russians. They arrested this innocent young woman. Well, she ain't innocent. She just pled guilty. And the Russians didn't invent the cartridges. They're hers.
Right.
At some point in time, Brittney Griner smoked hash and a vape pen. Hopefully she didn't do it in Russia. But she carried paraphernalia with residue on her person, in her luggage, as she crossed a Russian checkpoint. Shame on her. Shouldn't have done it.
Okay. So it's still going to play out. I think, she was pleaded guilty, and this story's not going away tomorrow, right?
No, the United States will play it for all it's worth. But I'll just say the Russians don't care. They really don't. So I don't know who the United States is trying to impress by blowing this up into a story that it's not. The only reason why we care about her is because of her name. Otherwise, she would just be like any of the dozens of other Americans who are currently in Russian jail for possessing narcotics. And there's a lot of Americans in Russian jail for possessing narcotics.
Okay, so in our final moments, Americans in Russian jails possessing narcotics, who are they? They're not superstars. They're regular people. How did they get to Russia, and how did that happen?
Well, there's a huge tourism industry in Russia. It's one of the most beautiful destinations in the world. St. Petersburg, Moscow. There's a lot of Americans that tour, take the Trans-Siberian Railroad across Siberia. Russia is a huge country, has a lot to offer, and a lot of people go over there. There's a lot of Russian Americans who go over there. And unfortunately for Russia, there's a lot of drugs in Russia. The Russians have a narcotics problem, like we have a narcotics problem here in the United States. You can buy drugs anywhere you want to in Russia. You can get it off the streets in any city, pretty much any town. So the Russian police and the Russian justice system, the legislature has passed laws, making it a criminal offense. And the Russian police enforce those laws. And the Russian judicial system, passes judgment on those laws. So we have Americans who travel to Russia who think that maybe, they can get away with it. Well, just like the people who tried to get away with it here in the United States, when you get caught, so sad, too bad. You get caught breaking the Russian law, you're going to pay the Russian price.
Okay, so Scott, thank you. You've been listening to Scott Ritter. This is Issues That Matter. And if you like this show, please follow me on my YouTube channel. Thanks, Scott.